Hey, I'm here with Jeff and Penny here in Santa Cruz, and they are part of the local bee guild. We were lucky enough to hang out with them, ask them some questions, and here's what they had to say.
Well, part of the reason I became part of the guild was that I have bees, and we were looking to have a forum where people could come and talk about bees and learn, and actually help new beekeepers learn the art of beekeeping. So I have probably 25-30 hives myself, and I've collected them over the last 4 or 5 years. As I actually have a bee removal service. I take bees out of the walls of people's houses, I collect swarms, I also do bumblebees and yellow jackets. I keep the bees alive as much as I possibly can. Moving them out of a building is rather traumatic, so they get a lot of care and nursing in my yard before I give them to somebody else or put them with my regular hives.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've been involved with bees since 2005. Started beekeeping when we had a swarm of bees land in a tree in our backyard. Spent a number of hours reading and trying to locate another beekeeper to come and take them, and then decided it was my turn. I would keep them. In general, since the late 1990s, the varroa mite has moved all across the United States. It is a parasite on bees. It primarily attacks the larvae, but it will also attack the adults. Its numbers can increase to such great extent that it will actually destroy the hive. So about 2005, I was noticing that in our backyard in the springtime there were very few bees. And about that time, I started reading about the varroa mite, and later that summer was when the bees arrived in our backyard. I think there are very few feral hives left, although there are some now, and bees seem to be developing resistance to the mites. But in general, I think there's fewer feral hives in Santa Cruz County than there have been over the past number of years. So what's happening in Santa Cruz now is that people like us are taking up backyard beekeeping, and people might have 2 or 3 hives in their backyard. And that, I think, is one of the prime sources of bees in Santa Cruz County.
Wow, so that's something for the community, if they're looking to help out in some way, that's something they could do, is have a hive in their backyard. Not that it's an easy thing.
No, it's not an easy thing, and it's not for everybody. And a hive of bees, well, bees will forage over 2.5 to 3 miles from their hive. So even if you don't have a hive in your backyard, somebody else within 2 miles of you having one will, there will be bees available in an area. The dwindling. Commercial beekeepers are losing between 20 and 30% of their hives every year to disease of one form or another. It used to be varroa mites, and then this colony collapse disorder, which has been all over the news for the last few years. That seems, apparently this last winter, the losses were around 20% instead of the 30 to 35% of past years. It's still unsustainable for a commercial operation to lose that many, but maybe we're getting it under control. I'm not sure if we have learned exactly what the causes are. Could be a combination of pesticides, of new viruses, of just management practices and the way the bees are kept. I don't think there's any one thing that's been nailed down. These plants have co-evolved with bees for 60 to 100 million years. As bees develop and plants develop, their strategy is to produce pretty flowers that have attractive nectar and pollen to the bees, and just over time that relationship is developed. Part of the plant strategy to maintain its genetic diversity is to not be self-fertile, but to require pollen from another plant in order to keep the gene pool diverse. That in return requires pollination, so the plants not only are taking care of themselves, but developing characteristics that make them attractive to bees to allow cross-pollination. So there are many plants that we rely on that have to be cross-pollinated, and bees are some of the primary pollinators of those plants. Especially seed production, where you've got seeds that are being distributed that you buy in the stores in packets. Most seeds require bee pollination to be fertile. You might have, there's some plants like boysenberries or squashes or things like that, they can have some pollination by the wind or smaller insects, but they require a significant amount of pollen on each flower to allow the multiple seeds to develop properly. So if you see a stunted blackberry with just a few bulbs in the berry, it probably wasn't pollinated fully.
Interesting.
So it's to get a commercial crop and to provide the quantities of food that we need.
Right.
Bee pollination is essential. They can call myself, or they can look up people on the swarm call list with the Santa Cruz Bee Guild, SantaCruzBees.org. Police and fire departments usually maintain a list of people who are willing to collect swarms. There's many people, especially now that beekeeping is so popular. There's a lot of people that are very interested in collecting swarms, and we generally take them for free.
You had your hive for
Just a year and a half.
just a year and a half.
And I just do it for the bees and for the honey and to make soap and lotion.
And you have some of those behind here,
Yes.
right? So this is, so you've made all these out of
Yes.
just
They're
this one
soaps,
hive.
Soaps, beeswax, salve, honey butter.
And did you know anything about bees before
No.
doing this? Or
I
just
studied
this?
them a little bit.
Whoa.
So I always wanted them. They're pretty cool. They're fun to have. They're fun to watch.
Would you say it's pretty easy to maintain a hive as someone who's not an everyday bee?
Well, it's easy, but you do get stung if you.
Yeah.
So it's a learning experience every time you open it. Yeah, watching them come in and out with pollen, and they do little dances, and they're fun to watch.
First swarm.
Yeah.
I had them in a box, a regular, well, not quite a regular beehive, but similar to a regular beehive, right outside our back door. We sit out on the back porch eating breakfast, watching the bees go in and out. And like 4 or 5 times a day, even more in the beginning, I would go out and just watch what was happening at the hive.
It's pretty fascinating to watch.